Welcome to Dark Feed, where once you find the feed, it finds you. Zebb Quinn was 20 years old when he vanished without a trace. He wasn't a runaway, he wasn't a criminal, and he wasn't the kind of person people expected to disappear. He had a job, a future, and plans for the next day. But what makes his case truly chilling isn't just that he went missing. It's the way the world around him seemed to warp in the hours leading up to it. The way time bent, logic broke, and everyone involved started acting wrong. What happened to Zebb Quinn in Asheville, North Carolina on January 2, 2000, is a case that still haunts the people who knew him and confounds everyone who studied it. It's a story about a small-town mystery that spiraled into something stranger, something darker. This isn't just a missing persons case. This is a fracture in reality. Zebb was a quiet, slightly awkward guy. He worked at a Walmart in Asheville, doing night shifts in electronics. He lived with his mother and sister. He was into computers, sci-fi, and military history. His friends described him as friendly, if a little socially shy. But what people remember most is how normal he seemed. A kid you'd never expect to become the center of a nightmare. On the night of January 2nd, Zebb clocked out of his shift around 9 p.m. He met up with a coworker, a guy named Robert Jason Owens. Zebb told his family he was going with Owens to look at a used car he wanted to buy. It was supposed to be a quick trip, something routine. He never came home, and the events of that night only make less sense the deeper you go. Owens told police they drove together to look at the car, but along the way, Zebb got a page. Remember, this was 2000, and asked Owens to pull over so he could call the number back. He used a payphone. After the call, Owens said Zebb seemed frantic, distraught. He told Owens he had to cancel their plan and sped off in his own car. That was the last confirmed sighting of Zebb Quinn. But the strange part? Owens said Zebb seemed almost scared after that call. Like he was panicking, like something had just shifted. Investigators traced the number Zebb called. It was a phone registered to the Volvo dealership where his aunt worked. But she denied paging him. She said she'd been out with friends at the time and confirmed it. There was no reason she would have paged him. And even if someone had used the dealership line, why? To lure him? What's worse, that number was never explained. It just lingers in the record like a glitch, a static pulse that changed the course of the night. The next day, Zebb didn't show up for work. That was out of character. He was responsible, punctual. His mother immediately grew concerned. Then things got weirder. 2 days later, someone called Walmart pretending to be Zebb. They told his manager that he was sick and wouldn't be coming in. But it wasn't Zebb. The voice was wrong. And police later traced the call back to none other than Jason Owens, the same man who said Zebb had sped off in a panic. When questioned, Owens admitted to making the call, but he said he only did it because Zebb had asked him to. According to him, Zebb had called that night, panicked, and asked Owens to call in sick for him. That's it. He claimed he was just helping a friend. But why? Why would someone make a fake call on behalf of someone who was now missing? Why didn't he come forward with that earlier? And then came January 6th. Zebb's car, a light blue 1990 Mazda Protege, was found abandoned in the parking lot of the Little Pigs barbecue restaurant, just a few blocks from the hospital. It had been there for days. And the scene inside that car? It made everything more confusing. Inside the vehicle, police found several strange items. A hotel key card, a jacket that didn't belong to Zebb, empty drink bottles, and a live puppy. Yes, a small black lab mix, trapped inside the car, alive and scared. There were also lips drawn in lipstick on the rear windshield.
No fingerprints.
No blood, no signs of struggle. And Zebb, still missing. The puppy was eventually traced to a woman who had recently broken up with Zebb's close friend. She said she had given it to that man, not to Zebb. So how did it end up locked in Zebb's car? And the hotel key? It was never matched to any known hotel in the area. Police were baffled. The car itself was locked. It appeared to have been parked deliberately, not dumped or ditched. The lights weren't left on. The windows weren't broken. Whoever left it there had taken their time. It's here where the story seems to fracture. Let's talk about Jason Owens again. Owens was the last known person to see Zebb Quinn alive. He made the fake sick call, and when questioned by police, he suddenly claimed that after Zebb sped off that night, Owens himself had been in a car crash. One so bad he ended up in the hospital. But there's no hospital record, no police report, no evidence of any collision. It was a lie, and when investigators pushed further, Owens stopped cooperating. Now here's the kicker. Years later, 16 years later, Owens was arrested in connection to a completely separate double murder. The brutal killing of a couple named JT and Christy Codd. Their remains were found burned in his backyard. Let that sink in. The last person to see Zebb Quinn alive eventually turned out to be a killer. But in 2000, Owens walked free. Police said they had no evidence to tie him to Zebb's disappearance. But something else had happened that January night. Something police didn't uncover until much later. Zebb had recently been involved in a complicated relationship, a kind of triangle. He had a crush on a coworker, a girl named Misty Taylor. Misty, however, had a boyfriend at the time, and that boyfriend was abusive, controlling, known to be violent. Zebb had told friends he was afraid of Misty's boyfriend, that the guy had threatened him, warned him to stay away. The boyfriend's name was Wesley Smith. Here's where it gets chilling. The anonymous page Zebb received that night, the one that seemed to send him spiraling, was never conclusively tied to Misty's boyfriend. But the timing, the content, the way Zebb reacted, it all suggests he got a message warning him to stop what he was doing, to back off, to disappear. And he did. There were rumors, of course. People said they saw him, that he'd left town, that he'd gone into hiding. But there was no activity on his bank accounts, no calls, no social security use. He hadn't packed a bag. He hadn't made plans to leave. Zebb Quinn was simply gone. And the deeper you dig, the more the case unravels into a series of near misses, missteps, threads that never connect. Jason Owens, who would later be charged with murder, was never formally named as a suspect. Misty Taylor refused to speak publicly. Wesley Smith lawyered up early and disappeared from the spotlight. And Zebb, he remained frozen in that moment. A 20-year-old kid, driving off into the night, reacting to a page that should never have come through. Some people believe Zebb was killed that night, lured to a location, ambushed, maybe by Jason, maybe by Misty's boyfriend, maybe by someone else entirely. Others think he might have discovered something, heard something he wasn't meant to hear, and was silenced before he could speak. But then there are those details. The puppy, the lips drawn on the glass, the locked car with its strange items and no fingerprints. It doesn't feel like a murder. It feels like a message, a warning, like someone was saying, "This is what happens when you don't listen." And that's where part 1 ends. For years, the disappearance of Zebb Quinn hung over Asheville like a dark cloud no one could shake off. A missing persons poster that never faded. A rumor whispered in the break rooms of Walmart and the shadows of the Blue Ridge Mountains. His case wasn't just unsolved, it felt wrong. Like something had been stitched together backwards. The leads dried up. The police held press conferences, but nothing came of them. They said they were continuing to investigate. But the tone shifted. The urgency bled away. In the absence of answers, theories began to rot. One rumor said Zebb had run off to Florida. Another claimed he had joined a cult. A more disturbing version suggested he'd been abducted by someone close to him, and that his body had been ground up or hidden in a cave system just outside of town. Some people even believed he was alive, hiding out, traumatized by something so terrible that he'd chosen to vanish himself. But Zebb's family never believed he left voluntarily. Not for a second. He had no reason to.
No preparaschen.
No exit strategy. The page he received that night, the panic in his voice, the planted car, the puppy, none of it pointed to a disappearance by choice. The years passed. The posters came down. The tip lines stopped ringing. And then, in 2015, 15 years after Zebb vanished, Asheville police responded to a missing persons report unrelated to Zebb. A local married couple, JT and Christy Codd, had stopped returning calls. Friends were worried. A wellness check was requested. The police went to their home, but no one answered. A short time later, they discovered that the couple's neighbor had been using their truck. That neighbor was Jason Owens. Yes, that Jason Owens. The same man who had been the last known person to see Zebb Quinn alive. Owens told investigators that he'd seen the couple recently, that they had gone out of town, and that he had permission to use the truck. But police didn't buy it. They obtained a warrant. What they found behind Owens' trailer home was straight out of a nightmare. Inside a wood-burning stove, they discovered bone fragments, teeth, charred remains. The Codds were dead, and Jason Owens was charged with their murder. He pled guilty in 2017, not just to killing them, but to dismembering them and trying to dispose of their bodies through fire. He admitted that JT had confronted him about stolen tools, that a fight broke out, that he panicked, that he killed them both, then tried to erase every trace. Owens was sentenced to 59 years in prison, and suddenly, everything about Zebb Quinn's case shifted. The man who had told police Zebb just drove away was now a confessed killer with a pattern of eliminating people when caught in a lie. He had tried to cover up murder once. Could he have done it before? The Asheville Police Department reopened Zebb's file. They brought in cadaver dogs. They searched Owens' property. And in March of 2015, they publicly announced that new forensic evidence had been uncovered. Evidence that linked Owens to Zebb Quinn's disappearance. They never said what that evidence was. They never filed formal charges. But the implication was clear. The man who killed JT and Christy may have also murdered Zebb. Owens remained silent. Zebb's mother, Denise Vlahakis, spoke to reporters. Her voice cracked. She said she'd known it all along, that something had never sat right with her, that Owens had changed his story too many times, that her son never would have disappeared without saying goodbye. But here's the part no one talks about. When the police searched Owens' property in 2015, they didn't just find evidence. They found something stranger. In the backyard, near where Owens had burned the Codds' bodies, there was a buried storage container. Inside it were several bizarre items: women's clothing, rope, videotapes, a lockbox with what appeared to be newspaper clippings and photographs. Most of them degraded by moisture. No names, no context. But one of the photographs reportedly showed a man matching Zebb's description, sitting at what looked like a bus station. His eyes were closed, his head tilted. The authenticity of the image has never been confirmed. Police have never released it to the public. Some believe it was planted to confuse investigators. Others think it may have been a trophy, a way for Owens to relive the power he had over Zebb. Still others think it wasn't Owens at all. You see, Owens was never the only person with motive. There's still Misty Taylor, still Wesley Smith, her abusive boyfriend at the time of Zebb's disappearance. Police have said that Smith had no alibi for the night Zebb vanished, that he refused polygraph tests, that he hired a lawyer almost immediately. Misty, she vanished from the public record not long after Zebb's disappearance. Her social media accounts went dark. She moved away. Some believe Owens was just the scapegoat, that someone else, maybe Smith, used Owens to lure Zebb out that night, that Owens was the bait. And once Zebb was isolated, others stepped in. There's a piece of local folklore about that part of Asheville, about a stretch of old road near Bent Creek, out past where the lights fade. They say if you drive out there late at night, you'll see a lone figure standing by the side of the road. Just a silhouette, no details. But if you slow down, he disappears. Locals call it the Watcher. Zebb's car was found not far from there. The lipstick, the puppy, the locked doors. It's like someone staged it, like someone wanted people to look. But only so far. Owens is in prison, but he's never been charged in Zebb's case. In fact, his lawyers have repeatedly claimed he had nothing to do with it, that he lied about the sick call and the crash because he was scared, that he thought he was protecting Zebb, that he was being manipulated by someone else. Maybe he was, or maybe that's just another lie. The thing about cases like this is that the longer they sit, the more the truth decays. Facts rot, witnesses die, memories fray, and the people left behind are stuck in a loop, watching the same footage, reading the same headlines, begging for answers that never come. But Zebb Quinn wasn't a story. He was a person, and there are still things we don't know. The page that came from a dealership number that no one ever sent. The sudden panic. The spiral into the night. It's easy to look back now and draw lines, connect dots, point fingers. But in 2000, it was chaos. And by the time the truth started to harden, too many years had passed. We think of killers as monsters, as shadows with knives. But sometimes they wear name tags. They shake your hand. They tell you they're your friend. And when they lie to the police, we believe them. Because the truth doesn't always arrive with blood and noise. Sometimes it comes wrapped in silence. Jason Owens is in prison now. But the answers to what he did and what he knows remain locked away. Just like Zebb. Just like the moment that changed everything. And we still haven't found the key. You'd think that with time, the mystery of Zebb Quinn would get easier to live with. That the years would sand down the sharp edges. That once a prime suspect was in prison, once bones were burned and secrets uncovered, the weight of his disappearance would finally lift. But it hasn't. Not for his family. Not for Asheville. Not for anyone who stared too long into the gap he left behind. If anything, the silence has only grown louder. It's been over 2 decades since Zebb vanished. Since a quiet kid left work on a cold January night and fell off the face of the earth. Since a car showed up with a puppy, a lipstick smear, and a hole in reality. Since the people closest to him began forgetting how to answer questions without glancing sideways. The world has changed. Walmart upgraded. Phones became smart. The roads Zebb drove that night are lined with new businesses, new homes. But the questions are still there, pinned like rusted nails to an invisible wall. The last confirmed sighting of Zebb Quinn was at 9 p.m. on January 2, 2000. Everything after that is noise. Jason Owens is behind bars for murder. But he never confessed to anything involving Zebb. He's never even been charged. And the people who could have helped find him, they've gone quiet. Some have disappeared. Others changed their names. Even the official investigations seem to drift into fog. In 2017, police said they were still pursuing leads. In 2019, they stopped commenting. And in 2021, a records request revealed that most of the early files in the case had been misplaced. Some evidence had been damaged in storage. Other parts simply vanished. Zebb isn't just a missing person anymore. He's an echo. The case should have exploded when Owens was arrested for double murder. It should have reignited everything. And for a moment, it did. But then it flickered and died like a dying signal caught in static. People stopped asking questions. Reporters stopped showing up. But one thing has never sat right. Zebb's car. It wasn't just abandoned. It was arranged. The puppy. Left alive without food or water for days but unharmed. The smudge of lipstick. The strange hotel keycard that didn't match any known local room. The driver's seat pulled too far back for Zebb's height. And the most haunting detail? His glasses and contacts were missing from the car, despite the fact that Zebb had extremely poor vision. He never went anywhere without them. If he left that car, if he walked away from it, he did so blind. Unless someone else parked it and wanted it to look that way. There was a sighting years later, A trucker claimed to have seen a man matching Zebb's description at a gas station in Mississippi. The man was disoriented, nervous, kept looking over his shoulder. Police followed the lead. It went nowhere. Another tip claimed Zebb had been seen in Florida, living under a different name. He was working in construction. Someone swore it was him. But when officers followed up, the man in question had a solid alibi and a birth certificate. Not Zebb. Every false lead was a fresh wound for his mother. Denise never stopped searching. She kept Zebb's room untouched for years, left the light on, said it helped her feel like he might come home. But time has a way of blurring things. The neighborhood aged. Walmart hired new staff. People forgot the night Zebb vanished. It was easier that way, but the truth was never gone. In 2020, a retired detective who had worked on the case in its earliest days gave an interview to a small podcast. Off the record, he said something chilling. He said, "We knew who did it. We just couldn't prove it. And by the time we could, too many hands had touched the evidence." When pressed, he refused to name names, but he hinted at obstruction, at interference, at connections between Jason Owens and other people in town, people who didn't want the case solved. The host asked if he thought Zebb was still alive. The detective paused, then said, "If he is, he's not himself anymore." That line stuck with me. He's not himself anymore. Because what does that mean? Was Zebb broken? Brainwashed? Drugged? Was he being held somewhere? Or had something happened that was worse than death? People online have theories. Some are elaborate. Others are simple. One popular theory is that Zebb was lured to meet someone that night, possibly Misty Taylor or her boyfriend, under the guise of looking at a car. The page he received was fake, a trap. When he arrived, they confronted him. Things escalated. He was killed, and then someone, Owens, Smith, or both, staged the car scene. The puppy was a distraction. The lipstick, a message. The whole thing, a cover. But then why not just dump the car? Why dress it up like performance art? Unless the goal was confusion. Another theory suggests Zebb found something out. That he knew something he shouldn't have about drugs, money, or local corruption. That the page that night was a warning. And that when he didn't listen, they made him disappear. There's even a theory that he was kept. Like the fact that Owens wasn't just involved in Zebb's case. He was also connected to other strange disappearances in the region. Rumors swirl about other victims, about tapes, about blackmail, but no charges were ever filed. And then there's the dream. In 2003, a man came forward claiming to have recurring dreams about a cabin in the woods. In the dreams, Zebb is locked in a room, calling out. The man drew a map, said he'd never been to North Carolina. He lived in Illinois. The police dismissed it, called it a hoax. But later, an anonymous caller said the location described in the dream was near a Rayal abandoned hunting lodge, one that had burned down just a few months after Zebb's disappearance. The fire was ruled accidental. No remains were found, and so the case circled the drain again. In 2022, a small bones fragment was found during a construction project outside Asheville. People held their breath. Could it be Zebb? DNA testing showed it was animal. Another dead end. It's hard to describe what it's like to research someone like Zebb Quinn. The case seems simple at first. A missing kid, a shady friend, an abandoned car. But the deeper you dig, the more the story feels cursed, like it doesn't want to be told. Files are missing. Witnesses go silent. People lie. People vanish. The facts bend. The past resists. It's like standing in fog and seeing a figure just out of reach. And every time you move forward, it moves back. But the shape never disappears. Zebb Quinn was 20. He liked science fiction and military history. He worked nights. He had plans. And then one night something happened. And no one has ever said what. His story isn't clean. It's not a movie. There's no closure. Just smoke, rumors, shadows. But the thing about shadows? They only exist when something real is blocking the light. So maybe the truth is still there, just behind the wall, just under the surface. Maybe someone still knows, and maybe someday the smoke will clear. Until then, we remember Zebb the only way we can. Not with answers, but with questions that refuse to die.